What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. Today we are back on the R65 project. The name of the game today is to try to get as far as possible with this rear subframe. In the last video we made this rear hoop. Off camera I have welded in some seat mounts as well. So now what I need to do is actually cut this thing to length with the proper miter joints to match up with our existing frame. And I mentioned in the last video that I was waiting for a tool to come in to help me do that. Happy to report the tool is here. Let's see how it works. So here's the tool. I'm going to walk you guys through how it works. This one's from a company called Pipe Master. I have absolutely no affiliation with them whatsoever. I bought this thing full retail. Truth be told, it was pretty expensive. I think it was like 60 bucks. And jury's still out on if it's worth it. But how this is designed to work is you take a tube, this is 1 inch, exactly like our subframe is. You slide it over. You get the tube into the exact position that you want it to be in, so you get all your angles right, you figure out exactly where it's supposed to be. You slide this tool forward, and then you very gently kind of work yourself around and move all those little pins to mate up with the pipe you're going up against. So, just going kind of quickly here. That's roughly the shape we're going for. And what that gives you is a rough outline of exactly where to cut your pipe. So, we got a few of them out of place. We can kind of fix those. And you just would make a Sharpie mark around this entire thing, which is what I've already done. You cut that out, using an angle grinder, cutoff wheel, whatever you want to use. You have a nice mitered cut that then joins up nice and smooth. And in theory, should be exactly where you want it. Run a weld around there and be good to go. So that's what we're going to be working on. This is going to be a bit nerve-wracking just because I have 2 of these joints to make that need to be exactly in the right spot so that when this matches up, everything is nice and square and level and even and exactly where we want it. I've taken a little bit of time to get everything exactly in place where I want it to be. So this is the exact angle we want. It's also nice and square and level to the frame as well. I'm using these factory mounting brackets to help me get it in position. The problem with that is it now interferes with my little tool, so I can't actually slide it quite as far forward as I want to. But I think it's still going to allow us to transfer the template over. So what I've done is back here, I just made a little Sharpie mark so I can make sure that this is all kind of oriented in the right direction. I've pushed all these little pins up against that factory frame. What I also did earlier was made a little mark on each side. If you can see it through on that side as well. And what that mark is where the frame should meet up on this bottom side with the top of our original frame. So how I got that is I put the seat on, I kind of slid everything a little bit off to the side and as forward as I possibly can so that the seat matches up nicely with the back of the gas tank. And I just took a little Sharpie and kind of matched the 2. So that in theory should be exactly where our kind of miter cut should end. And I can use that to get the position here. So I'm pretty confident, I'm not terribly confident, but I am pretty confident that this is going to be the exact kind of template that we need. What I want to do now is probably switch this over to the right side frame rail and make sure that it matches. Because in theory, if this is all nice and square, these cuts should be identical. They should just mirror each other. Looks like it matches up pretty well on the right side of the bike as well. So I say we just slide this thing back, start to make some marks, cut this thing out. I can overanalyze this thing for a month, but I say we just start cutting. So this doesn't happen often, but I think it's important to share that I am admitting defeat on this. I spent a couple of hours yesterday afternoon trying to get these in just the right position, and we're just not getting there. I'm just not confident that I currently have the skill set to do this, which is a little bit defeating, but I decided to take a step back, slept overnight. I came back and looked at it this morning, and it got my gears turning. The factory rear subframe is completely bolt-on on this bike. It uses these mounts right here. It uses a couple of little holes down here on the bottom as well. So it got me thinking, why don't I just make my subframe bolt-on as well? That means the bike could be reverted to a stock subframe in 10 minutes. It also is going to greatly simplify this process for me because I can just cut these, I'll probably try to match the angle of the frame just to keep them, somewhat unique looking. We'll cap the end of them off, and all I'm going to need is a short little tab off of each side, and we can use the factory subframe mounting fixture that's already there. So I'm really glad I didn't cut those off. So I think we're going to do that. I think this is going to be a simpler but elegant solution, and you know, it stinks to admit defeat on the miters, but I think this is going to work out better overall. So. Got those modifications done, so I capped off the end, also put our 2 tabs on. So now I can kind of offer it up to the bike, use the factory mounting bolts, go through like that. Obviously this adjustment is still yet to be made, but looking pretty good. If we bring the seat over, slide our mounting through, and then when we match the angle, yes, much better. Okay, we have a nice even gap all the way through here. It's roughly a finger amount, a quarter of an inch, maybe a little bit more than a quarter of an inch, but I think that's going to be perfect. Gives our tank a little bit of room to move around on those mounts. Sweet. Okay, I'm jazzed again. I was getting a little bit down with, you know, kind of having to admit failure with our version 1, but seeing it now, I think the version 2 is the way to go anyway. So I've been trying a bunch of different styles for this support beam. Originally, I was thinking about doing something that had a little bit of a bend in it, so we could kind of match the curve that's up here. The more I play around with it, I'm just not sold that's the way to go, because it's going to be mostly straight with like a little bit of a kink at the end, which doesn't really add anything. You know, it gets really funky when you have a ton of bend in it, so I don't think I want to do that. And I started looking at some inspiration bikes and stuff I have on the wall, and almost everything just uses a straight bar for this piece. So this I coped to 30 degrees, which is going to give us just the right angle to match up with our mount down here and give us a ton of support right where we need it, way out in the back here where most of the weight is going to be. So I think this is what we're going to do. This is also one of those things that I'm just going to tack into place, and then when we take a step back, if it looks funky, we can change directions. But for now, I think I'm going to go with just a 30-degree angle and a nice straight piece. I'm still figuring out in my mind how I want to do this mount. I've been playing around with a few options, and I haven't really found one that I love yet. So this is that thick bracket cut up, and it's just overkill. It's just obnoxious. 1/4-inch plate. You know, when you put it on here, it just looks very bulky, and I could, of course, clean it up a little bit more, but I don't know. I don't like it. I don't think it looks very clean. I tried it with a bit thinner, you know, a piece of angle iron. That's even worse. With this sharp bend right here, it just looks very out of place and kind of an afterthought. So I'm going to kind of abandon that strategy. The next option I thought about is similar to how the factory subframe mounts. Basically, it's just a piece of tube that is crushed on the end and then kind of rounded over. I tried to crush this tube just to see what it was like, and I just can't get a good uniform kind of crushed section at the end of a piece of tube with the tools that I have. I don't have a hydraulic press or anything that puts out enough kind of tonnage for me to be able to pull that off. So I'm not really going to be able to do that. I actually looked around and looked at all the spare bike frames and everything to see if maybe I could find something that already had a piece like that I could cut off and use. Wasn't able to find anything kind of laying around the shop as well. So unfortunately, I don't have a way to make that. I do think that that would be a pretty clean solution. If you could picture this like actually done well and on the end, you know, it would look pretty factory. So that is still an option. I just would have to figure out how to do it or where to buy one. But I thought of a even more kind of unique option. When I was looking through my scrap bin, I found this. And these are spherical rod ends or heim joints. I think there's a couple of different names for them. These aren't the right size, but if I got the right size, they come with a weld-in bung. So I'd actually be able to slide the little bung into my tube, weld it, and then this would allow me to bolt right through it. And that would actually give us some adjustability in the overall angle and the height of the back of the seat, because you can screw that end in and out and probably get like almost an inch of adjustability to really be able to dial this angle in exactly where I want. And then I think the actual one I would get is quite a bit smaller than this. I think it could be a pretty cool, pretty unique kind of design feature for the bike as well. So it may give us just exactly what we need. So I think I'm going to go ahead and order some of those. We can at least try them out and see how they look. You picture it right on the end of that. I might have to shorten this up a little bit, but I think it could be pretty cool. So I think that's what we're going to go with. Unfortunately, though, I need to order them, so I don't have anything that I can put on the bike today, but I believe that's the direction we're going to go. Well, that's all the time I have for this week's video, guys. I know it doesn't feel like we made a ton of progress, but having the mounts done for the top of the subframe, having the plan for the rest of it done is actually a big check mark on the to-do list. Next week's video, we'll finish that up, and then I want to start to customize and fabricate our rear suspension. I have a design in my head that I am relatively confident is going to work, but we won't know for sure until we actually get some pieces on the bike and we start to kind of check the overall travel, and it's to be determined if that's going to work or not. I've never designed a rear suspension, so I hope you guys come along for the ride. I appreciate you guys watching as always. I'll see you on the next video.